Dreamcatcher Studios, providing quality service in music education, studio recording, photography, and live entertainment. For more information, contact us at 209-421-2966. Dreamcatcher Studios. We don't just chase our dreams, we catch them.
If you're looking for the most amazing podcast ever, well, this isn't it. You're listening to the Average Fellas Podcast, guaranteed to let you down and leave you unsatisfied.
Good morning. Welcome to another episode of the Average Fellas Podcast. I'm your host, Zodizach, coming to you live all the way from Riverside, California. Whew. Man, the seasons are changing. I love fall weather. I love pumpkin spice. I'm a sucker for pumpkin spice. I really am. I love it. As soon as Starbucks drops that pumpkin spice, I'm like, ooh, I need to get some of it. And I had some. I actually used the pumpkin spice cloud foam and some good stuff that they got going on there. I'm not trying to make this about Starbucks, but I'm just ready for fall weather. Okay. Today's episode is episode 016. That's right, 16 episodes of the Monday episode of the Monday episodes. We're on episode 16. So excited about that. I have an awesome guest today, a good friend of mine, someone who I grew up with playing alongside in the music scene. Maybe not directly, but indirectly. We played in the same town, and we had bands that were a part of like the same local music scene. And it was really cool growing up with this guy, seeing what he's doing with his talent today. Without any further ado, I'd like to introduce my guest, Pat Gomes from Dreamcatcher Studios. What's going on, my guy?
Hey, man. How's it going?
Oh, man, it's going. It's going here at the Average Fellas headquarters. It's going. The ball's rolling here, man.
I feel that.
Thanks,
Monday
man.
morning. I'm loving it.
Yeah, exactly. Monday morning, we're getting the ball rolling. We're talking business here on the Average Fellas podcast.
Oh, business.
Business. Nothing but value. Anyways, enough about me, man. What's new? What's going on with Pat Gomes?
Well, you know what? When people ask me this all the time, it's like, oh, nothing. But I guess I got to be a little bit more specific here. So, just doing studio recordings as often as possible, live sound as often as possible. I still do lessons and still play music as much as I can.
Oh, man, that's great to hear. That's so good to hear. Especially like musician type, like people using that skill to like enrich somebody else's life. Like I volunteer at my church, and that to me is like it's a great opportunity. It's like something I love to do, something I can volunteer to do. I mean, you obviously are taking that a little more serious, sort of a business aspect that you have going on now with teaching lessons and stuff, which I want to get into today, which is super interesting. I really love what you're doing. And you are a part of the Dreamcatcher a team, right? Is that right?
Correct. That is correct. I believe you've already had Vanessa on here, and she's the founder, the creator, the brains behind the entire operation. She's the one who keeps everybody moving, and it's pretty much she's got this well-oiled machine that just, it's a clock. It just keeps moving and moving.
And everybody has a certain skill they're bringing to this academy. Well, once was the Los Banos Academy. I remember I think you were participating in the music lessons. Is that right? That in the Los Banos Academy, music. I think I can't remember what it was called, but
yeah, it was a LB Academy of Music, and that's actually what started Dreamcatcher Studios. It was originally only planned to be the Academy of Music, where we would have lessons for all sorts of instruments, singing, and then we expanded to dancing, art, acting.
Yeah.
And now we're finally able to do more live events, which, during COVID, it seems kind of like, wait, did I hear that correctly? You're able to do live events now? But, with the kind of innovation of drive-through and
right.
Similar events, it's really opened up a lot of doors for us.
That's amazing. That's awesome. I love hearing that story, how you guys sort of pivoted from like, hey, this is how we were doing business, but you kind of find a success during this, obviously COVID's not something that we obviously don't want. Nobody's happy about having it around. But you as a business have had to, sort of like, like I said, pivot and adapt to sort of figure out a way to make it in today's market amongst COVID. It's like, it's literally like, like The Walking Dead almost, right? It's like, here's the life that we're all living amongst the zombies, right? If you have COVID and you're suffering from COVID, I'm not making that correlation there, but I'm just saying, like, it seems like there's another story happening while our lives are continuing, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. So, hey, I want to get into the Dreamcatcher stuff a little more, but I also want to talk to Pat Gomes. So, my friend, who also, you know, like I said, played alongside me in like that early music scene, that high school music, you know, just the garage shows, man, all the good stuff. I had Nick Stockdale on last week. I had him on last Thursday, and he's, you know, obviously been a big influence on our music. Both of us, one of my earliest things I did with music projects featured Nick and I worked together on it, and then you went on to work with him with recording and even doing some of his I think I want to say Fur Drive and Damn Good Dog helped produce those projects, right?
Correct. That is correct.
So
yeah.
Oh,
go ahead. Sorry.
So I just want, you know, that's just kind of talking about your experience as far as like what I know, as far as like you as Pat, my friend, person I've been around. I know you've done these things. But I want to know, like, what's your earliest memory, like, for love of music?
Oh, that's, you know, it's funny because I can actually pinpoint this to a T. I was, you know, between like 6 and 7 years old, didn't know anything about music, didn't know how to play any instruments. All I know is that the System of a Down song, Chop Suey, was like popular as could be right then. And I would watch the music video for it every day on MTV.com. Like, I would go on the computer at that young age and watch that music video because I thought they were just rocking it.
Oh my gosh, man. That's so funny that you bring that up. Like, you would go online to MTV.com, not YouTube. MTV.com. Get that right.
That is correct.
Web address was dropped, all right?
I know. I can even remember the first YouTube experience I had. It was also watching band videos, but MTV.com, that was where that got started for me.
Oh my gosh, man. That's a good, you're aging yourself, man. And I think you're young, bro.
I mean, you know, 28 years old, it came up pretty quick. I'll tell you that.
I know, right? Tell me about it. Oh gosh. Oh man. So what are some of your earliest art, like what are some of the earliest artists that young Pat Gomes would consider his biggest influences for pursuing music? I know you mentioned System of a Down.
Correct. And you know, another one that was around the same era, Alien Ant Farm had that Michael Jackson cover, Smooth Criminal.
Yeah.
And that another song that, you know, I was really able to hear the drums and the bass even kind of at a young age. You know, being a drummer now, it makes sense, but I always thought, man, this drummer is killing it. Wow, this bass player is killing it. You know, those guys in that song, they're kind of like the unsung heroes in the background. They're doing great. But aside from that, my dad kind of, you know, whether he knew it or not, pumped classic 70s rock into my veins. And, you know, even today, if I were to put on my Spotify playlist, I'd say like 75% of it is going to be just like old 70s rock that, you know, you would expect a dad to listen to.
Yeah, the good stuff.
The good, and that's how I feel about it. The good
classics,
stuff.
the good stuff. The stuff that's in that vinyl bin, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And now I listen to that kind of stuff. Back then, you know, I didn't listen to lyrics or, you know, didn't really have much understanding of what was happening in the song, at least in that context. But
right.
It's nice to go back and listen to these songs and actually analyze them a little bit with some sort of a brain. And it's kind of cool to just see like, wow, they were already innovative back then.
Yeah,
to think that we're the innovators now, it's just continuously changed.
You're spot on because I do this, you know, I'm a big Star Wars nerd. I love Star Wars. Matter of fact, Thursday nights are dedicated to Star Wars here at the Average Fellas podcast. So
I love it.
So we one of the things I've been like looking at is looking at George Lucas's vision in the original trilogy and seeing how we as a society have sort of evolved around the concept of Star Wars and how we've continued to like innovate towards that direction. Like there was a part where the guy would use his watch to like lock doors and open things, and I'm thinking that's an Apple Watch today. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The Apple Watch does that today. And there's like, you know, the fact that the robots are called droids, and now we have a phone that is on the droid platform, right? That
Right.
OS system in itself kind of represents that, what the future of technology is going to be. And it's true when you talk about music in the same sense. Certain artists captured it, especially in the 70s. The concepts that we're playing with and the music and just the ideas that they were, you know, really, I think, diving into in that music genre. 70s classic rock, that area was very innovative, very, I guess, like future like thought. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does. It really does. And back then I feel like it was just, you know, the innovation was just different, but it was there.
Yeah.
You know, the way that they were thinking of things is more of these concepts of writing, in my opinion. You know, the things that were acceptable to sing about at this point, which in the past may not have been, you know, or even just the ideas that some of these, you know, guys represented. I think it was, I may be wrong, but I was on Facebook the other day and I saw someone post a repost of back when, I think it was Rob D. Snyder, I forgot his band, might have been Twisted Sister, but basically stood in front of a court and said, hey, this metal music, you know, and defended it in front of, you know, the government basically when they were trying to ban it. And that's kind of crazy to think about now, because if you hear anything on the radio, I mean, the amount of bleeps and rearranges that they have to use on the lyrics are just through the roof.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes you can't tell an original track anymore on the radio. Like, that's not even how that song goes.
Yeah, I don't think that's how they said that.
Yeah. No, that's true. Well, that's the good thing about podcasts. So there's no FCC regulations on this, so you could say whatever you want.
That doesn't help me much. I don't like to rattle cages. That's not me.
Well, I mean, that's here at the Average Fellas Podcast. I'm not trying to rattle cages, but you know, we're just, you know, I don't know. We're just trying to highlight average people's opinions, I guess. So there's obviously, like, I'm not some famous dude. You're not some famous dude, but I think you're doing something that is extraordinary as far as like what you're doing with Dreamcatchers and teaching kids and, you know, providing services to people that, you know, may be needing it, you know, especially trying to get your name out there with music and publicity and whatever, you know, production stuff. That's super exciting to me, man, to see that something from Los Banos, you know, that you guys have started to cultivate that there is really big. That's really big for these kids. You know what I'm saying? That's not just a simple because I wish that you guys were there when I was a kid. You know what I'm saying? Like, do you wish that you were there when you were a kid? You know what I'm saying?
And you know what? That Vanessa, the founder, she says the exact same thing. Her reason behind starting the School of Music was because affordable music lessons just weren't around when she was a kid. When I was a kid, you were a kid, at least in this area. Yeah. And you know, she wanted to provide for those that wanted to pursue music and didn't want to travel, you know, an hour, you know, or so away just for a half-hour singing lesson or guitar lesson. Yep. So in that sense, I was really, really excited to be a part of the team when it was starting, and it was just her. She was one person doing singing lessons. She had asked me if I was interested in, you know, teaching drums, and it started with drums, my primary instrument, and then it evolved because I play guitar, bass, and piano as well. I got more comfortable teaching those subjects. You know, I could always play them, but, you know, explaining the understanding to a young mind is always a different process from playing.
Yeah, no, exactly, because you have to bridge a gap. You have to connect the concept and to get them to actually actualize it and realize what you're teaching them, for them to understand it, and to see that demonstrated before you as a teacher is the most incredible thing you could ever do. Mm-hmm. And music is real time. You know what I'm saying? If a kid gets it, he gets it. And if he doesn't, you know he didn't practice.
Yep. Oh, man, that is 100% correct. I've gotten really good at spotting the ones who practice and the ones who don't. So I'll just gently nudge them in the right direction. Hey, I noticed that was a little tougher for you this week. Maybe we should put in a little bit more time.
Yeah.
But you know what? The biggest competition right now is like Fortnite and Warzone and all of these games. They always tell me that they spent hours on Fortnite.
You know what? They don't know what it's like for Guitar Hero to drop. You know what I'm saying?
Oh man,
they don't know what
Guitar Hero to drop like in high school or junior high.
Oh
and
my
it's
gosh.
Just shaking the world at this point.
I'm talking, there was party fights over this game in high school. You know what I'm saying? You showed up to the high school party. Like this was, I mean, I'm not trying to make, I was recently on a party podcast, so I'm just, still hyped on that episode that I did. Anyways, but yeah, I mean, like, I think it was just the right time maybe for us in our community. Like Guitar Hero was a big thing. I mean, I remember Guitar Hero competitions going down,
Oh yeah.
So I think maybe just the motivation is maybe, I don't know. I mean, obviously everything changes in time,
And that kind of brings me back. I was really into Post Malone for quite a while, especially when that first Stoney album came out. But I watched some interviews, and most people know now he got his start playing guitar because he was good at Guitar Hero. And one day he just said, you know what, I'm going to give this a try. Started playing guitar, and look at who he is now.
Yeah,
that literally started because of Guitar Hero. That's an insane thought.
I mean, but this is incredible too. If you think of Post Malone's skill level with the guitar, he would never say that he was the greatest guitar player of all time. He would never say he was a great guitar player,
Correct.
I mean, obviously he does hip hop, he does an R&B style, but he incorporates this sort of I guess country slash I want to say not bluegrass, but what's the other one I'm looking for? Folk.
A little folky, yeah.
Yeah, sort of brings those sorts of genres and connects it with this hip hop, and I love it, man. I love when that takes place. Like you can kind of see it. It's done in there, just woven in there enough to get the concept. Mm-hmm. And he, as a creator of music, like that's cool to see that happen. Like this guy, he's not good at guitar, but look what he did. He was able to execute that vision. He wants this style to be implemented, and he does it, and it's tasteful, and I listen to it, so. Exactly,
and you could kind of tell in the earlier stuff, the guitar had a lot to do with, or it had a big part in his writing process, at least, whether or not it ended up being in the final cut of the song, maybe not. And some of them it definitely was, some of them it wasn't, but you could just tell that it was kind of an integral part in just building his song from the ground up, whatever that song may be at the time.
Yeah.
I don't know if his process has changed much now, but I could see a shift in not just the quality, because the quality is definitely better, but the style is a little different. I think that's kind of why that first album really hit me hard, is because it was so different at the time, and each song, while it had its own characteristic that kind of binded it to the rest of the songs, it was still different every time you switched to a different track.
Right. So to me, those sorts of things, I think that shows more of the self-expression of the artist, because I think at an earlier state in your career, there's less production happening on other people's sides. It's more you that has to do it, right?
Right.
So I guess this is just like this is like producer talk, I guess, creative talk.
Yeah, that and I can't even say whether or not he did have a producer or several producers on the first album. But to me, it sounds like when it came to the songwriting and most of those aspects, it feels like he was doing more of it on his own. And again, I might be wrong. He may have had a team of producers on that, but you could just tell going from that album to the second one, there's a huge shift in production quality, and even just the little additions, the little details that most people don't listen for. It was
the polishedness on certain pieces,
That too. His quality was much more consistent on the second album, and every song he puts out now, it's almost like he's got his own template for what works well for his voice.
Yeah.
But the first one, you could tell, 3 or 4 songs were probably at one studio, then he went to a different one for the other couple, and he just kind of put everything together in this project, and it worked. In my opinion, it worked really well.
No, I agree. I completely agree. So speaking about, talking about passion, we're talking about music, we're talking about genre, we're talking about intricacies of it, all this kind of stuff jumbled up into one, like, I guess, episode, which isn't doing it justice, which we probably have to do a follow-up episode too.
I'm up for it, and I'm ready, just so you know.
I mean, yeah, definitely. I would love to talk genres and like producer stuff and like just, niche things in music. Maybe we can get another person in here too. That'd be great. That'd be a sick episode. All right, I'm on to something.
That would be. I know. I like that. We should write that down now.
Put that down. Well, I'm leaving this in the episode, so I'm hearing this. Okay.
There we go.
So speaking about like all this, your passion, which is music, what actions led from taking your passion for music and using it for like a business or even, employment to make money from? Where did that decision come from, or what actions did you take when you realized that you should do this?
It's funny because I think there's probably two different points for me. One being the musician side of things where I started teaching, and the other being the studio engineer where I started doing recordings. So I think the first one would have been recording. As soon as I was reaching the end of high school and starting college, I knew that I wanted to record. I knew that that was what made me happy, and that making things sound good made me feel good, So I think right around, when I was 19 or so, I started bringing people into my home, and I would just record off of a little single channel interface into my laptop that, was probably not equipped enough to run the software I was running. And then I bought a version of Pro Tools. I balled out and just said, you know what, I'm going to buy this. And, back then you could actually purchase it and not have to do its monthly subscription plan.
Wow.
Now I don't even think that's an option. So I feel like I'm grandfathered in with my version.
Lucky, man. That's good stuff, bro. That's awesome.
But when it came to, teaching and things, I had never considered that until Vanessa asked me, and she didn't have to do much convincing, but she convinced me that I would be good at it. At least, having someone else's faith in you really does a number on your self-esteem. So she really helped me to grow into a teacher, a music instructor. And that's been a really rewarding experience. I really like doing it, and it wasn't anything that I had ever planned on doing or ever thought that I would enjoy.
Right. And so, can you talk about maybe like your studio experience? Talk about that, because I know you said you purchased the full version and you balled out, purchased a full version of Pro Tools, right? But what led to like the mastery of that program, using that software? Because really, that's where that's an art. It's a skill in itself, understanding a software and like being able to manipulate it to achieve, your vision, what you're hearing and stuff.
Well, starting out, it was really easy to just, if I didn't know how to do something, I could try to word it in the Google search engine correctly enough. That would lead me, down a rabbit hole of forums and people calling each other names and things like this. But then I'd end up learning that lesson pretty quickly from someone else's mistakes. And I was able to get a pretty good grip on, like you said, manipulating the software and using key commands as opposed to constantly clicking the mouse and searching through menus. And I got really comfortable with that within the first, 2 or 3 years of using it. Mm-hmm. And I had other softwares at the time like FL Studio and Reaper and things like that I was still getting accustomed to. But when it came to recording, Pro Tools seemed to do everything that I wanted in the way that I wanted it to, with a user interface that I felt made sense. And I know a lot of people don't feel that way. And then I was probably about 23 years old. I ended up taking the Pro Tools certification courses. The first one is a self-guided course, so I was able to get the book, read through it, take my notes, take the test, certification complete. The second one required an actual course where you were, essentially babysat the whole time, but they taught you the ins and outs and workflow, really. So it wasn't to where someone would come in and you start looking around for, okay, well, how can I do this? What process do I need to do to get to what I want? It was more of, at that point, I was able to just say, okay, you want this? Perfect. Got it.
Yeah.
We're ready. That helped a lot, but it was also a bit of an eye-opener, because when I got there and started learning, I started to realize this is a lot of the stuff that I already use in my day-to-day recording process.
Yeah.
And so it was nice that it was like a bit of a verification that I was doing things, quote unquote, correctly.
Yeah.
But it was also nice to learn just like the gaps that needed to be filled, the little bit of knowledge that I needed to actually put it into use and make myself, better than I was.
To polish that, because there's a rudimentary like understanding of what, like, you know, I know how to use Audacity enough to produce a podcast, right? But if you told me to produce a record on here, I could not do that, you know. And there's somebody out there on YouTube who can produce a whole record on Audacity, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, exactly.
And
you know, going into that, like, again, being like a pretty avid Pro Tools user, no pun intended, avid Pro Tools, but another buddy of mine does the exact same thing that I do in GarageBand. And now I've taken a challenge from him, which was, okay, well, I have this band recorded, I have all of the stems, let's load them onto Pat's Mac and see if he can mix them in GarageBand. You know, something that I may have already done in Pro Tools previously. I had, you know, received the stems. Now I have to try to recreate that in GarageBand.
Wow.
I'll tell you this, it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do with a computer. And this other guy's name's Alex, he's able to do that in, I mean, if you were comparing seconds to milliseconds, I'm taking 20 seconds, he's taking like, you know, a millisecond to get the same process done. So it really just comes down to comfortability with your software.
Yeah.
If you stick with something long enough, and you know, I don't care what it is, it could be literally anything, you will keep getting better at it every single time you do it. So Pro Tools versus Audacity versus GarageBand, Logic, all of those other main softwares, it's going to come down to what you're comfortable with and what you want to work on for the rest of your time recording. Which
I think for me, you know, like when it comes to recording a podcast, I think, you know, Audacity is doing it fine. It's a free software. I think once, you know, if there seems to be some sort of value that starts to generate to this podcast where it gets, you know, a substantial amount of listeners, and that's my hope, because I want to really put you guys out there. You know, I want to promote the average fella, right? So I want listeners, to hear the average fellas, to hear their experience and how they're doing extraordinary things like giving lessons, learning a software, mastering that skill, using it to provide, you know, do something that you love. Like, and that's what I wanted to talk about, dig a little deeper into that. What is it about the studio life that you love the most? Like, what studio experiences are the ones that make the studio like the studio?
Well, you know, I work with a lot of hip hop, and I don't think that's just, you know, I think it's more of just the time that we live in. Hip hop is just much more prevalent than it used to be. And it, you know, keeps getting more and more. But I think some of the funnest experiences I've had have been working with bands, like you had mentioned, Fur Drive and Damn Good Dog. Working with Nick is such a fun experience. I think most of that's because we're just good friends.
Yeah.
But we also have the rapport that allows us to try things that maybe we weren't expecting or maybe aren't traditional recording methods.
Yeah.
And, you know, it gave us a real chance to kind of explore the sound and not worry about, you know, this needs to be perfect. More of it needs to be what we like.
Yeah.
You know? And so that was really fun. If I was to kind of pinpoint it to like types of experiences, it's usually working with bands, and in particular that band was a really fun one to work with.
Yeah. No, I mean, I had fun just being around both those projects and taking pictures. I actually did some videos for the Fur Drive stuff that I watch till this day. I'm like, man, that holds up really well. Like the whole entire video that I did of them and their performance, and I was like, oh, this is so fun.
And that was at VCC, right, here in Los Banos?
That was at VCC in Los Banos that I used to work at. I used to work at that church, and it was a good, man. That was just a good night.
It's funny. I remember that show, and that was a very cool show. And I think, like you had mentioned, their performance for that one was just, I mean, great.
It was fun. It was so good to see your friends like execute on a level that was like, yes, you did it. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. And, you know, it was almost like, I don't want to say an unexpected group of friends, because, you know, Junior, Daniel, and Nick, that makes sense. You know, that was the original band when it was just Fur Drive, you know? Yeah.
And then they had got Kyle Chapman on guitar, which wasn't really like out of the pocket too much, but, you know, Kyle's definitely a classic trained guitarist.
Yeah.
You know, his skill level is, you know, through the roof.
He's a gigging guy. He's the guy you want to pay for.
Exactly. And Nick, Daniel, me, you know, most of us that we are around, have just learned by playing. We've just figured it out and went into it head first. So like to see the difference between just that group right there was pretty cool. And then you throw Vanessa on top of it. It was, that was just a really cool recipe for an awesome band.
Yeah. And I wonder, is Fur Drive still up on Spotify?
Oh, I think so. Actually, you know what? While we're talking, I will check because I'm pretty sure I've listened to them in the last couple months.
Nice. Shout out to another project by my friends.
Oh yeah, they're still up there.
That's still up there, man. Check that out. That's another. Vanessa was on that project. Nick Stockton was on that project. Pat helped produce that project, and a couple other of our friends that will be on the podcast were part of that project. So it was just really proud of the local people the local guys putting that together. It's good stuff.
There we go.
In
fact, I actually recorded that project as well. That was the first band that I had ever recorded on my own with my own equipment, which was bare minimum at the time.
Wow.
I mean, if there was a level below bare minimum, it may have been there too, maybe in the subfloor.
You were in the garage level. You're at the basement level.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what
level.
This podcast is at the basement level right now. I was actually had opportunity to talk with another podcaster, and we had made the analogy that right now we're digging our way out of the basement to get to the ground floor of podcasting. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of like where it's at right now. And I'm just glad that there's so many people that want to participate. And, especially just, I think they believe in like the idea of what I'm trying to do here, and that's why it's such a good time for me to have people like you on, Vanessa and Nick on. I'll have other people that have like small business ideas. I've had nonprofits already on the show and freelancers, so keeping up with that theme, like I think it goes back to that just community effort, and I think like you doing that, producing those 2 records, it just goes back to that whole entire thing, looking out for the average fella, man.
Exactly. And you know what? Working with friends, as much as I think people probably say that's not a good idea, it was extremely fun. It made the experience much more laid back. We could just say it was laid back. We got work done, but we weren't stressed on, the little things. Like we have to get this done in this amount of time. We have to have these processors on this instrument because that's how it's done, or things like that. We more so found our way around those, and I think more in the Damn Good Dog album than the Fur Drive. We kind of knew a little bit more of the loopholes that we could get through in recording at that time.
Man, that's awesome to hear that. Just to see that progression. I mean, I can imagine. Like, I'm not sure what projects you've recently produced, but maybe we can get some links to that later on so we can put them on the show if you want to. Talking about performance, we talked about our friends' bands who you help produce their records for. I want to talk about live performance. I know recently Dreamcatcher just promoted and hosted an event that was on the 10th. Am I correct?
Yeah, just a couple of days ago.
That's right. Can you highlight some of the behind the scenes work that you maybe did, and like a part of Dreamcatcher Studio, what you guys did at that event? Highlight some of the work that took place.
Oh man, I mean, I can only speak to what dealt with the stage erection, and then going into the audio and going into the lighting slightly. Right. Basically anything that dealt with the band and the performance that we had. Vanessa, again, I'll keep saying it, she's a mastermind. She's running the entire show. She's everywhere.
Yeah,
that
directing
whole
it.
time. And not just directing, she's got, teams of people doing different things, as well as, she's emceeing the show and keeping it running smoothly just from the front, being the front woman of the entire performance. It's crazy to see in person. I think the audience probably has a different perception of what, us who are working see.
Yeah.
What they may see is, wow, that was a great show. Things went smoothly. That's awesome. But, us, we're running around and making sure that everything is a great show.
Yeah.
So we had set up the day before. We brought a stage out there. Everything was built just prior to our arrival with the sound equipment and the band. And once that was done, we were able to start putting in all of our speaker cabs, all of our monitors and everything. We put a nice floor on the stage, and sound checks started. And, with every live performance, there's always a bug, there's always a snag, there's something, So we tried our best to work those out during sound check, and we ended up getting pretty close, enough to where I could kind of finagle it once the band started playing, and I could actually get them to sound the way I wanted them to sound.
Exactly.
During sound check, a lot of what's happening is for the band, not as much for, well, I guess it depends how much time you have. If you're rushed, a lot of what you end up having to do is just for the band.
Yeah.
Each one has their own monitor that they want to hear a specific mixture of instruments and vocals in. And, each person, a 7-member band with 7 monitors, needs to kind of let me know to their best ability, what do they want to hear?
Yeah.
And so working on that, it probably takes, 20 minutes or so with each person, because there's always a change after it's been set, But we got through that pretty smoothly. We moved into the rest of the day, which involved music, dancing, lots of character performers, and the actual dancers that were able to go on the dance floor and dance in the middle of the entire audience. They did amazing. It was such a cool thing to see. And at the end of the night, once the band came on within the first, song, we had everything smoothed out, sounding the way that I wanted it to sound.
Yeah.
Again, from the audience point of view, they probably just thought, oh, these guys are good. And that was it. From my point of view, I'm hearing this tiny little thing. I don't know, maybe the vocals weren't as, bright in the high end that I wanted, or maybe the saxophone was too bright, and you just change those things to try to get the frequency spectrum as level as possible.
Man, that's cool. So, and as a good live sound tech, right? Live sound tech, like, I guess that was like sound guy, sound dude.
Yeah. I always say I'm the sound guy, but I guess if we were being technical, I guess it would be the sound tech or sound engineer.
Live sound engineer, live sound tech, right? Basically,
yeah.
In that area, right? So, so I mean, you're pretty much the unsung hero of the gig, because you want to not be noticed, right? Your job is to mix everything so well that everybody enjoys the show and doesn't care about you. That's
exactly. You know how many performances I've been to where I said, man, this sound guy is not doing this.
Yeah,
exactly. Or you can actually notice the point in time where he got it down. It's always the first song or two. There's no one really to blame for that. Sound check and performing are 2 different things. 9 times out of 10, the band goes up there and turns up their amp anyways, after sound check. Or they haven't been singing at their full volume during sound check because they're trying to preserve their voice.
Right.
Or not hitting the drums as loud because, having them hit the snare drum 50 times in a row, they kind of get tired of it pretty quickly. So, it is a little bit different, but every sound guy's got that first 5-10 minutes where they're just, frantically trying to figure out what has changed. And, I'm no exception to that. It happens all the time, but after that first 5 minutes, it's always smooth sailing, unless some catastrophic failure occurs, which, knock on wood, doesn't happen if you've done your R&R,
Right, exactly, yeah. No, that's good stuff, man. I really appreciate your take on that, because it's true. Like all the things, like, obviously working with the church, doing live sound and stuff, like getting the monitors right. Like every time we perform on Sunday, my wife and I will help volunteer and play and stuff. We got to check our monitors and stuff, and like, what things do I need in my ear and stuff. And then you talk about turning up after you already sound checked. That's like, only the sound guys are going to know this. Only the sound guys are going to get these little things like, okay, well, you weren't, like, you talked about those experiences, saying singers not singing at their full volume. That's all experience. That's all hours clocked working with people. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Talking about the drummer getting weak in the hand. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny to actually pinpoint what it is that's happening without anyone actually saying it.
Exactly.
Like the singer doesn't have to tell you, I'm not trying to be loud right now. I don't want to blow my voice out. You almost just have to kind of know that that's what's going to happen. It's not, everybody's different. There's a ton of psychology in it that you got to figure out relatively quickly.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It is really fun. I love being in the studio, and that's, probably the favorite part about my day. But when I get to go out and do live sound, the experience almost feels more rewarding. You know, it's instant gratification. You have to do everything that you're doing in the studio, but on the spot.
Yeah.
With an audience.
With an audience. Speaking about with an audience, can you talk about, can you highlight what Dreamcatcher, the services that Dreamcatcher provided in order to pull off this entire gig? What needed to be orchestrated? I'm sure Vanessa probably be the better person to ask the question to, but I know you were there. I mean, obviously this is after the event, and I'm thinking about this question, but like, what did you guys actually do as a studio? What did you guys need to put together? What did you guys have to do as services to put this whole entire thing together?
Well, as far as in-house services, we were able to provide all of the staging, all of the sound, all of the lighting, and in the end, the DJ as well, and the MC. So most of those things are expected, you know, from a production company, even a smaller production company like us. So those are usually the big cost, you know, they're the big cost items, the big ticket items.
The equipment and stuff you guys are providing for this live event.
And for that, I'm able to usually take most of that work on just because being the sound guy, knowing the equipment and knowing what may be necessary to help achieve Vanessa's ultimate goal.
Right.
You know? And all of the other aspects go to her because there's definitely partnerships, sponsorships, reaching out to the character actors in this particular event, and whatever other entertainment may be needed. You know,
right.
There was a lot of dancing during our last performance, which was El Noche Caliente, in the same location in Hollister at Bellado Park. But the quality of performers, you know, is Vanessa knows exactly what she wants, and she works her hardest to make sure that that's what the audience is going to see.
Yeah.
So she, you know, vets the dancers, vets the performers, vets the band, and makes sure that they're going to provide the experience that we think the audience deserves.
Right.
So when it came to outsourcing, those would be the main outsourced pieces: the location, the performers.
Right. And obviously as like a production company, as a studio, like your goal is to hopefully capture and harness the talent and, you know, and I guess, like, you know, pump it out. I guess, I don't know how you say, expose it more, you know, as a production, you know, studio, you want to expose the talent more. And I think, you know, obviously we said, like, your setup as a business is we provide these services, we outsource our talent, you know, they come in, and Vanessa vets the talent, the skill level. She's worked at a professional level. She's worked as a hired gun, pretty much working for businesses, being paid to use her talent, you know, so she understands the level of professionalism that needs to come along with these performers, right? So it's not just a garage band showing up, you know?
Exactly. But you know what? If it was a garage band showing up, we would make it work.
Hey.
I have no doubt about it.
The average fellas.
You know, I love working with garage bands, you know, because growing up, that's what we were doing. You know? So those are the people that I feel extremely comfortable talking to, you know, and having a pretty good knowledge of music equipment is usually a nice icebreaker. I mean, for this particular event, the drummer showed up, and I see he has an Axis longboard pedal. And for the drummers out there, you already know, but for, you know, people who aren't drummers, back in like 2006, 2007, this was like the ultimate kick drum pedal that you could buy. Everyone was using it. It was the coolest thing since sliced bread.
No, man.
And then, you know, popularity just kind of went downhill after that.
The Iron Cobra took over.
Right. So I had mentioned to him, "Oh, that's cool. You have the Axis pedal." Yeah, I got it when I was pretty younger, but I don't know. And I said, "You don't play metal anymore, right?" He said, "Yeah, that's exactly right." It's like the exact same. It's the same experience I had. It was just so funny.
Oh man, that's funny. Well, that's like me. Like I like now it's like I'm playing this soft like U2 church music now, right? And I mean I've been doing that for like the past 7 years now, really. But earlier, you know, all my guitars all had EMGs in it. We're ready to scream and shred. I wanted the Ibanez, you know, just thin neck to do some cool squeals or something.
Oh now, man, I miss Velcro by Design. I'm just gonna say it. I gotta say it. That band was such a cool thing to see in Las Vegas.
Oh man, we were something else, man. We had a style of our own, but it was there, man. It was fun. It was such a good project. Nick put it the best. He said we were having too much fun with the music. We didn't know what we were doing, and that was the honest truth. It was just writing something that we loved.
I was gonna say that's what makes good music, though. We were having fun with the music because you guys were enjoying every bit of it. I think that was awesome. You know, we were all younger, and like the whole business side of music is still something that I feel like I'm pretending to know. You know,
Yeah.
because there's so many ins and outs of it, and even growing up around it, you know, there's something to learn every day. And back then, we were all young and having fun. We didn't know how to get ourselves out there, but we were making good music. You know?
Well, I mean,
had the times been different, or had it been today, the result probably would have been a bit different too. You know?
No, exactly. I think no, I completely agree with you. But like, it goes back to that whole entire you know, when you talk about like just having fun and stuff. Like when there's like you teach I taught myself how to play guitar. You know, I took like 2 weeks worth of lessons, which is just showing up to class twice, right, with a private, you know, instructor. And they just pretty much told me how to read tabs. That was it. I was like, okay, I could do that at home. So that's what I did. So I just started off doing that and learning it myself, right? And then wanting to participate in music, playing with bands, and then having just enough knowledge about music equipment, especially guitars and like PA systems from playing in music so long. It gave me the opportunity to, you know, be the AV guy, which is the audio visual dude at my church, right? So I was like, okay, well, they have money that they invested in certain pieces of gear, which I was able to learn, which I was able to use, which I was able to expand my knowledge of audio visual, you know, tools, soundboards, compressors, you know, wireless mic systems, in-ear monitors, all these kind of stuff like that, right? So being around exposing myself to those, because I love music and I love that kind of stuff, you almost feel like, you know, for me, it's like, how do I turn that around and sell my knowledge now that I've been investing myself in out of a passion for I love for this stuff, right? Like, I love guitar. I almost feel like I'd be robbing somebody if I asked them to pay me to teach them, because I love guitar that much, you know? And it's a weird thing to think, to actually, you know, flip it and say, wait a second, I can use my skill to, you know, employ myself to do something that I love, you know, provide for my family, whatever it may be. And yeah, like you said, yeah, you didn't know that growing up. We didn't consider that growing up. And here we are now. I'm in my 30s. You know, you're approaching your 30s. It's clicking. Oh, wait a second. Wait, I have all this knowledge from all this experience that I've done in music, in live sound, in studio. You know, you even went a step further to master your studio, you know, knowledge. And here it is now. You know, I think you guys are in a good position. I think you have a lot of great experience. I would trust you working on my project. So those of you guys who are looking to get recorded in the 209 area, you need to put something together. Check out Dreamcatcher Studios. We got the sound engineer in the studio today, my boy Pat.
Oh man, and hey, you know what? You'd be making my day, because that's the stuff I love to do, honestly. Make people sound good. And even if you sound good, we can make you sound better.
There you go.
We can always do that.
Exactly. And that's what you need. You need somebody who has the skills, who loves to do that thing, right? I'm the performer kind of guy. I want to be the talent. You know what I'm saying? That's just the attitude that I have. That's why I want to be on the microphone. But you know, the thing that you love, the passion, like you said, making things sound better, you know, playing drums, all your experiences overall feed into you providing a service now. I want to sound better, so I would go looking at your studio, you know. If I had a band, obviously I want to take it to you to record, you know.
I think that would be a super fun experience. Oh man.
So speaking about recording and stuff, what, as a sound engineer, or as Pat Gomes too, and as sound engineer, who do you love to work with? What is your vision or type of project that excites you when you go into the studio?
Oh, into the studio, it's always recording guitar. For some reason, you know, even being a drummer, I know I'm going to get a drum sound that I want, you know, so that's, as much as I work on getting that sound, and I know it's going to be okay. But for guitar, I really enjoy the experimenting process, because it seems like there's an endless, just a maze of ways that you could start miking the guitar, not miking the guitar. Maybe you do it DI, or maybe you use 2 mics, 3 mics, use a different room, you know, put the amp in a bigger room while you're in a separate one. You know, all these little things change the sound. I don't want to say this change is negligible. I notice it. The guitar player usually notices it. With the audience, maybe not. It's, you know, it's kind of subjective. But that's the kind of stuff that I really like doing that. That's the fun experience for me.
That's what's up, man. And that's the thing too that I noticed, like with like, you know, studio stuff, like experimenting with like, you know, guitar players are those dudes who are like, yeah, man, experiment, let's do this. You know, that's usually how guitar players are. So, you know, I mean, they're definitely that niche amongst the band. The drummer's like, I want to keep it tight. The bass player's like, I want to keep it tight. You know, it's probably a tie between the vocalist and the guitar player, and how, yeah, let's experiment with capturing my sound.
And, you know, the last band that I recorded, which has been a while now because of COVID, lately I've just been doing mixes that have been sent in to me from other studios,
right?
Which I also really enjoy because that kind of gives me a little bit of my privacy in working. I get to just sit down, have a cup of coffee, relax. In my opinion, it feels relaxing.
Yeah.
And start changing things slightly until I feel like I've built the song up to what the artist is expecting, you know?
Yeah.
But the last band that I got to record was actually my own band at the time. I was the drummer. We were named Cold Fur. Haven't even put the album out yet. Sitting in a hard drive, locked away.
Oh, man.
But me and the guitar player, Alex Hardy, you probably remember him from
Yeah, no, I need to get him on. I need to get him on the podcast. Shout out Alex Hardy.
I think he'd love it. Musically, him and I just get each other. It's funny because our disagreements are nonstop, but when it comes down to like what we think the vision should be, it's there, you know. The process is always a little bit different. So what we did on this last recording was he and I would set up in, even though I had the studio, we did it in my home. We put the drums in one room, the guitar player or his guitar amp out in the hallway, and we mic'd them up separately and changed the mic positions until we felt like we got such a good blend of drums in the guitar mic and guitar in the drum mics that we were ready to just play through the songs live, essentially.
Wow.
I put a click track through my headphones, and he had his headphones listening to everything that was going on, and we just played the rhythm tracks of the songs that way. And something about that energy and connectedness just makes for a really cool recording experience and a cool ultimate product. Those are still some of my favorite songs.
Well, I think because recording drums in post, right, after you record everything separately, right, doing every individual musician by himself or herself, whoever it may be. Sorry. So those kinds of individually recording musicians, like there's an energy that's not felt, you know, and doing two at the same time, pairing people together, you capture that energy that you want on the record where you're like, wow, this is more like the live. This is what I'm talking about. Because I've had problems where I recorded by myself, super lackluster. I'm like, oh, that just sounds like I farted or something, you know, like there's no energy, you know what I'm saying? Like
too sterile.
Exactly. Right? Yeah.
It feels like you just walked into a completely white room with white tile floor and that's all that's there.
Exactly. Yeah.
I know that feeling a lot. And that's why I feel like we tried to, you know, change that. Again, he was the one I was speaking about earlier who is really proficient in GarageBand. So his recording knowledge combined with my recording knowledge gave us like the room to experiment in a way that we already knew was going to be a good result, you know? Plus recording multi-instruments at the same time has been something that's been done since the beginning of recording technology, you know?
Yeah.
Most things that we hear from the 70s and before weren't isolated. Maybe they were overdubbed later, but usually it was the group is in a big room, everything's kind of separated, but they can hear each other and they just go for it, you know?
Yeah. And I like, I don't know if you've ever done that, but I don't know if you've seen these kind of YouTube channels where they'll do like live performance in the studio, right? They'll just set up cameras in the studio and then they'll record the whole band. Is that something that you guys are going to try to do once this COVID situation maybe gets solved? Are you guys looking to like branch out into something like that as a studio?
Yes, I would love to have those types of YouTube videos, and the goal is very reachable, you know?
Yeah.
Right now, number one priority is safety, but we have one out right now that is just an acoustic song, but by Harbor and Heel, titled My Friends and Me. A great song, great artist. It was recorded right here in the studio, and this was our very first time recording video, especially in such a low light situation. So it's starting the learning.
Yeah.
That was the very first one. And I think since then we've already got our knowledge of, shutter speed and frame rate and things like that I still barely know about. I hope all you photographers and videographers out there aren't laughing at me. But that was something we just hadn't done before. Our experience is 100% in music, performance, sound, instruments. That's what we know. So I'm excited to do more of that, and I think that's going to be something that we'll see in the near future, as long as there are bands and artists that are interested in having those sorts of videos.
Yeah, man. Obviously, like I remember, I think I shot this idea back and forth with you, is about even featuring, like, I don't know, eventually featuring a show called like the MySpace Band Day or something.
Oh, yeah.
I would feature a guest or guests who had a MySpace band, because this was a thing for us, for our generation. Why don't you highlight your MySpace bands, dude? Speaking of MySpace bands.
Oh, man. Okay, so I would love to hear from anyone in the 209, like, about Sundown and Counting. That was back then, being into kind of like metal. For me, Sundown and Counting being more of like an indie screamo band was just out of the box for me. It was just like, I've never been into this type of music, but this is really good.
Yeah.
And they were practicing right down the street from our house, where we were practicing at as young kids learning metal. And I remember one day we're all 15 to 13 years old. We're just children hanging out outside, probably drinking sodas or doing something good, and we just heard this music coming from down the street that was, it was loud. We were 3 houses away, so we walked over there and talked to the guys, and it was Sundown and Counting.
Oh my gosh!
And that was kind of our first experience talking with bands that were already out playing music in the area.
Yeah.
Another one was Nightmarica. Again, I was into metal, and they were metal celebrities. They were. They really were. So their music was, super influential. And the way that they were going about it, getting shows and playing around all types of crowds, and just getting it out there.
Yeah.
It was, it was really cool. I'm sure if Alex was here and we were talking about Nightmarica, he'd probably cringe a little bit. But I think we all cringe about our old bands.
Yeah, for sure.
And then one that I guess wasn't as local, but it was still MySpace era, was The Subtle Way.
Yeah.
You probably remember them.
Of course I do.
They were amazing. Back then the guitar players were extremely innovative for that type of music. Hearing technical guitar and screamo was just kind of not commonplace. I would hear the sweeping, and it was just like, there was no way that anyone else, what was the other, From First to Last wasn't doing that,
No, I honestly, when you talk about The Subtle Way, though, it brings back a lot of memories, because that was like the first time I'd ever taken my Junior and Daniel to a local show, right? They'd never been to a local show, and it was like, yo, this is the show you need to go to, bro, because these guys are putting down some stuff. And like, remember they had their own little light show and everything? Like, there was a hot dog place in Las Vegas called Hot Dog Heaven. Shout out.
Oh, man.
Oh, geez.
Memories.
So many crazy things went down at these gigs. And I'm talking like, these are like everybody from like death metal bands to like little emo bands, and like classical, violin players would show up and stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm saying everybody this was a venue that hosted local talent, and in the 209 area. And when they showed up, they're from the Bay Area. When they showed up, they had their own little light show going on with them. And man, I'm talking about like one of the best local small shows, maybe 40 people in the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
The sound was so heavy, your chest would be thumping. The lights were flashing, screaming, sweat, guitar sweeps. The drummer, I can't think his name was, I want to say I can't remember his name. I think his name is Mike or something like that. The drummer was a killer on the kit. Was just a good was a tactician, like was super into like his thing. Like he wasn't just they were skilled musicians, and it was such a good show. I hate to like just like I don't want to just be like, hey, you just shouting them out, whatever. But honestly, it changed the game for some of us. Like some of us seen that and we're like, we can do that. Like I want to do that.
And going back to what you had said about Hot Dog Heaven, again, shout out Hot Dog Heaven. That was the OG place where, I mean, many bands in town at least got their start at playing music live. I know for me, I was 13 years old, and the other members of the group were 15. They were all freshmen in high school. I'm in 7th grade at this point.
That's
so
like
we
brother,
started
yeah.
and we started a band, And I was not into metal music at all. Again, I was into classic rock and like System of a Down type of music, like semi-heavy rock, And they came in and they're like, well, we're going to play this extremely double bass heavy music with lots of screaming. Are you in? I was just like, okay, might as well give it a try because I like playing drums. So that was my first show. In fact, I believe that was Hot Dog Heaven's first show when Spectre was the name of our band.
Oh my gosh.
Took the stage and opened up that night. And, everyone's in high school or so, maybe above high school age when we show up. And again, we're children. We are
children.
Kids. I have the cassette videotape that my parents took of us from that night where I look like an innocent little child. And so does everybody else. In fact, they sweep through the crowd in that video. They like turn around. They were front row. They turn around and show the crowd, and it is packed wall to wall. And this building, you probably remember, I mean, I can't remember square footage, but I bet you it was probably only 20 feet across and like 30 feet back.
Yeah, it was a small room.
And it was wall to wall. People would try to walk in the door, and it's like, well, where do I go? And would end up just standing at the door because you can't go in any further.
Yeah.
That was an exciting experience. And then every other show that came after that at Hot Dog Heaven just kept getting better and better, whether it was heavy music, whether it was a little bit lighter screamo music, there was always a crowd there, and it was always a cool experience. Like, yeah, I don't know. There wasn't much else after Hot Dog Heaven. I think we had a lot of, you probably remember the Smoothie King shows as well.
Yeah, I remember those ones. Those ones are fun too.
And for those who don't know, it was basically a little strip mall that had a business Smoothie King on one end, and on the far other end was some tax company, and everything in between was just an open building, rafters, but no flooring, no insulation in the roof. It was just open.
Toilets didn't work.
Toilets didn't work exactly, and somehow they allowed this rowdy group of kids, which was, I mean, bigger than a group. We could call it this rowdy crowd of kids.
Sometimes it'd be 200 people there.
Yeah, because the actual, room that we had was huge. And
yeah.
The amount of people that we could fit. And it wasn't just local bands at that point. It was Chris Constancio who was setting up most of those shows.
Yeah.
I forgot the name of his production company at the time, but,
it's
again.
Like Dumbledore Productions or something like that.
I think you're right. And again, he was in high school at that time.
Yeah.
And he's bringing in these bands from the Bay Area, Sacramento.
Hustling.
He had got one from Michigan, I think. Within the Ruins, I think they were from like Michigan or Milwaukee, one of the M's.
Yeah.
And, at the time, they were one of my favorite bands. And I'm thinking, how in the world are they going to show up in little, 35,000 population Las Banas?
Yeah. MySpace.
In MySpace, exactly. It's crazy.
That was the beginning of social media, dude. That was it, man. MySpace was the bridge. You would be introduced to somebody on MySpace, a top 8. Your friend was like, I'm going to put my favorite band in my top 8.
Exactly. I'm going to put that song on my playlist,
Matter of fact,
so that everyone hears it.
I bet you The Subtle Way is in my top 8 right now if you Googled my MySpace.
Oh, man. I think I deleted my MySpace, and now it's something I'm regretting. I wish I could have gone back and see who I was back then.
It's such a shame, though. Shame on MySpace. They had a data corruption issue when they migrated some of their stuff. So they were migrating all the old accounts, and when they did that, they lost hundreds of gigabytes worth of music from local small artists. I'm talking hundreds of gigabytes, dude. Corrupted.
And that's where that's some of the only places you can find these.
That was some of the,
now.
yep, just on these servers in the middle of nowhere, the remnant of MySpace local garage band.
It's funny, man. All of my old bands are locked away on a Zune, if anyone remembers those.
Yes.
It was a knockoff iPod.
Hey, the Zune was innovative. They could play video, dog.
Dude, I loved the Zune, honestly, but I got so much crap about it because, it wasn't an iPad or iPod.
But see, that goes back to the negligence of the people out there in society who thought that their iPod with no screen that couldn't play no video, was like the thing. But here in your pocket, you had a Zune that could play games, had video, had photos, you know what I'm saying, was ahead of its time. That thing was sick, dude. I had one too.
But you know what? Apple caught up pretty quick.
Yeah, they did. They did catch up.
Once they put out that iPod video or whatever it was called with the screen, it was like a nice screen too.
Yeah. Yeah, and the wheel wasn't actually a wheel. It was actually touch finally, because originally the first iPods were just these bricks. I remember my friend Ferguson had one, and I was just like, "What is that? Why is there a battery on your arm?" Man, those things.
I remember
were so cool.
those. Oh, and like the way that it was set up in the front just looked like 1980s technology compared to now.
Star Wars technology, man.
Exactly. That is definitely something I could see sitting like somewhere on the dash of the Millennium Falcon. Really.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're hitting about an hour and 5 minutes on this interview. I think we talked about a lot of stuff today, man. I think we covered a lot of ground. I do want to ask you one more question here before we get to the shout outs. What keeps Pat Gomes, the creative, inspired today?
That's so funny because it's never looking forward, as odd as that sounds, in the sense that my inspiration comes from like old music. It really does, and I had mentioned it, 70s rock, anything that's, considered classic rock now. I enjoy it so much, and I always find something new that they were doing back then that I feel I can refine and do now in my own way.
Yeah.
So I guess it is looking forward in a sense, but the ideas are coming from the pioneers. Really.
Right. Wow.
And
that's good stuff.
Whether it comes to writing or playing or recording, live sound, any of it, it all, for me, a lot of it comes from what's been done and what I can improve on it.
Yeah. Oh, man, totally get it. 100%, man. So, folks, I think we had a good episode today. I think we covered a lot of stuff, man. If you like music, if you like sound production, this is your episode. We got some deep cuts here.
What? And if you want me to talk more about it, anybody, give me a call, because I guarantee you I can go for hours.
No, but for sure we'll have to have another episode. We'll have to get you on again, and maybe we can get another production person on the call too, because this is really good stuff, and I really enjoy talking about music production myself. You said looking to the past, hearing, being inspired, and trying to refine it for, and I do that constantly. I hear a record and it does something where I'm like, wow, that just the tone that was captured, on that one record. Aerosmith, I only say that because it's just literally is my goal whenever I open up a song, is to be, that song. It's so captivating.
Yeah, I was gonna say Aerosmith has got this great energy about them. Like their music was really, really good. Not to like put down newer music or anything, because I am open to new music, all the time.
Right.
I'm always looking on like new music on Spotify, trying to get something that I might like. But it just takes a lot more now with what's coming out to move me either emotionally or even mentally, just to try to like pique my interest and get me thinking. It's just so much easier for the older music to do that for some reason. I think it has to do with the practices that they used in recording and writing the songs. And, it's a little bit more sterile now, but I think that as everyone's evolving, they're slowly getting around that, bit of just kind of brittleness that you hear in the newer music.
No, I completely agree, man. Hey, so where can we find any of your projects? And shout out Dreamcatcher Studio for us before we sign off today.
Oh man, I wish I could say where the projects are, but most of the time they get sent to the artist and I never know what happens with them after that. But the ones that I know for sure are still there on Spotify, I think you'll enjoy, are Damn Good Dogs EP. Go listen to that one, just from beginning to end. feel it because it definitely has a lot of emotion.
Yeah.
And that was probably one of, my most proud recording experiences. Not to say that I did an amazing job. That was still early on in my career, but I am really happy with the emotion that got conveyed on that one.
Yeah, no, exactly. Every little bit captured that sound of what the artist was trying to put together, and that's something that I respect and I see in the project. So exactly, check that out on Spotify, guys. Damn Good Dog and Fur Drive, they're still up there, so check them out while you can. Yeah, and Dreamcatcher Studios, can you shout them out real quick? Give us a little breakdown.
Shout out to Dreamcatcher Studios. Shout out to Vanessa. She just continuously kills it. She's the master of this craft, and I am excited to see where it's going to go. But in the meantime, more live performances, more lessons, more whatever it is that the people want.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Hey, guys, thank you so much for listening. Once again, my guest today, Pat Gomes, of the sound engineer and at Dreamcatcher Studios in LB. So once again, big shout out to them. Thank you for joining the call today, Pat. Really appreciate you being here. Once again, guys, don't forget, leave us a review and subscribe, all those good things. Check us out on YouTube. We have bonus content on YouTube if you're ever wondering. Check out our Instagram and Facebook. All those things help us. We're trying to get the word out there. Once again, I like to partner with small businesses, nonprofits, startups, freelancers. Anybody who has something extraordinary that they're providing for the world, I want to partner with, just like Dreamcatcher Studios. Once again, guys, peace and love.